Welcome to Keen on Retirement, a show dedicated to helping you thrive before and during your retirement years. If you are looking to grow and protect your wealth and want to make the second half of your life the best half, then listen in as Wealth Advisor Bill Keen sorts through the key issues that you need to know in a lively and candid way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Keen on Retirement. I'm your co-host, Steve, and we got Bill and Matt here, as always. Hey, guys, how you doing?
We're doing well, Steve. How are you doing? You hanging in
Doing
there
great.
out there? I mean, last time we spoke, you were rubbing it in on us because it was such nice weather out there. We were complaining a little bit about what we've gone through here, but all is well for you?
All is well. Yeah, it was just this past weekend, was at the Seattle Boat Show for 3 days. Had a great time up there. And yeah, up in Seattle, it was close to 60 degrees. And it was very wet, though, as is common for the Seattle, Pacific Northwest here in January, February. So yeah, but had a good trip out there. And so that was fun.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, so a quick
so-
question. Have you gotten with your fiduciary financial advisor and put that boat, because you typically don't go to boat shows unless you're ready to make a move. Did you have that in your financial plan, or share it with our audience here?
We do not have a boat at this point.
Okay.
It's under consideration. So we'll see. No final decision if we're actually going to, but we've been looking a little bit.
Nice.
Okay. Well, come on, do tell, share a little bit more about what it might be, or what model.
Yeah, well,
and that kind
it'd
of
be
thing?
a sailboat.
Okay, for
Yep,
sure.
as opposed to a powerboat. Yep.
Yeah.
And probably somewhere between 35 to 39 feet. I think our sweet spot is probably about 37 feet,
Okay.
which my wife and I could, I think, comfortably handle. A used one, not a new one,
Okay.
but not too used. And yeah, so we'll see.
Well, that's exciting. So where would you put this water in, or put this boat in?
Yeah, it would be in the Seattle area. So somewhere in the Puget Sound up to the San Juan Islands. So somewhere between just south of the Canadian border to somewhere in the Seattle area, the Olympic Peninsula area there, Port Townsend, Port Ludlow area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
lots of places to sail up there.
Well, I know you remember this, but I'll bring it to your attention anyway. When Carissa and I visited you, in I said Milwaukee, but tell me exactly where it was.
Mequon.
Mequon, that's right.
Mequon.
And that's in the region in the
Yeah,
northern
just north
part.
of Milwaukee.
And what's that area called? The area where we flew into there?
You were in Sturgeon Bay.
Sturgeon Bay. That's right.
Sturgeon Bay.
That's right. Before you moved to Portland, you were there, and you actually took us on a sailboat. I don't know if you recall, but we rented it. You chartered a sailboat, and you had a captain there. But look at you now.
Yeah.
Look at you now.
That was a Cal 40 boat, which is a pretty famous type of boat. It actually was a famous racing sailboat.
Okay.
And was a pretty radical design when it came out. I think it came out in the early to mid 1960s.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a very famous racing type boat.
Yeah. Well, I have a few pictures of myself at the helm. I was being coached, but for a moment there, I was at the helm. So good times.
Yeah. you could do it again.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So no, we're having a good time with it. It's kind of fun because we've been doing this for a little while now, and we start to know people. And so you go to something like a boat show and you've got people that you know. So it's fun to catch up, and yeah. So it's all good.
Very cool.
And,
well, it's right in line with our audience here, which is why I was asking you about it, because you're uniquely, your demographic is uniquely a lot of our audience. We have some, way younger and some older, but you being in your early 60s and doing things that feed your soul and your passions with your wife is pretty cool. And so it's fun to hear you share about something that you've really dug into. And I know how you operate, right? You do live life to the fullest, and it's good. So thank you for sharing.
And sometimes, to my wife's chagrin, I don't do things halfway. And so I tend to go all in. And sometimes that might be a little more than she wants, but she's definitely along for the ride here. So it's all good.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we got another good show lined up here. We have some
Mhm.
listener questions that we're going to talk about. But before we get to that, we had some huge news come
Yes.
from
man.
the government, from
Yes.
the Treasury Department, from the U.S. Mint. So Matt, I'm sort of teasing everybody here. What's the big news from the government that we need to talk about here?
Well,
And this
you
is
know,
recent. Yeah, this is recent.
yeah, it is. And what kind of prompted my curiosity, and I'm surprised I didn't see this, and maybe I did and just never paid attention to it really, but I had to take my daughter to Hobby Lobby, and on the door, as you walk in, they had, a printout that said, there's a penny shortage. So they
Okay.
are recommending everyone have, exact change if they're paying with cash. And I thought that was odd because I hadn't heard much of a penny shortage.
Right.
And maybe there is a penny shortage. However, I just Googled, penny shortage, and I found this article on the United States Mint's website, and they are suspending the penny. They're not going to make them anymore starting in 2026.
Okay, so that doesn't mean we're not going to be using them. It just means they're not going to be making them anymore.
That's right. No one's going to refuse your pennies. I mean, I guess they could if you tried to show up with too many pennies. They don't want to count them all out and ensure you have the correct change. But basically, they have an FAQ section on the Mint's website. Why is circulating penny production being suspended? So they are saying suspended, which I guess opens the door to bringing them back into circulation, I guess. I mean, it's not impossible that couldn't happen, but basically they're saying it's being influenced by the rising cost of producing the penny.
Oh, okay.
And it just says it has increased from 1.42 cents to 3.69 cents per penny.
Oh, man. 1-to-4 ratio there just to make these things.
Yeah. And next question, can I still use my pennies for retail transactions? Yes, it is still legal tender.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. When we say we're running out, where do they go? They have a shelf life or something?
They do have a shelf life.
So what do people just accidentally throw them away, or how do they go away?
They wear out over time.
Okay.
And they expect, coins basically, doesn't, not just pennies, but coins to last around 30 years. So maybe we won't see pennies anymore.
Okay.
30 years from now. And they remove them from circulation, and they are melted down and used for other things, according to the Mint.
Okay. Well, it sounds like at a 1-to-4 ratio, no wonder they're stopping producing them.
It's definitely a cost savings.
Yes.
Was that one of Doge's projects? Let's quit making this high price currency here. You're instantly losing nearly a quarter of the value just by making it. But it did say, interesting, another fact about the penny, that the total circulating coin, here's the question, the FAQ, what percentage of the Mint's total circulating coin production is represented by the penny?
Oh, so all these, the nickels, the dimes, the quarters,
that's the way I would read that. Yeah. Of all coins in production.
It's probably a high amount. So, cause it's such a low number, right? There'd be more of them. That's 1 cent. So there's going to be more of them. I don't know. Is it half or so?
Just over 57% of 5.61 billion coins.
Okay.
Well,
so I think another big question though is what's going to happen to pricing? So if we aren't able to price things in pennies, if something came out to $10.27, what happens to if someone wanted to pay cash, are they going to go to $10.25 and round down? Are they going to round up?
think that we'll yet to find out on that, Steve,
My
until it
prediction is they
becomes a
round up.
problem. But
Right.
I think it's just one step closer to digitizing most transactions, which I'm sure the vast majority of transactions are not in cash.
Mhm.
So they probably view this as less of a future problem. And if there's a 30-year time frame, this will start to work towards that direction.
That's right.
Mhm.
They can
You know-
always bring them back.
You could bring them back, but last episode, you both you were kind enough to allow me to share a little bit about my trip to Australia that we took over the new year.
Yeah.
And something that I left out was that over in Australia, there are no checks anymore. No one uses are writing
Physical.
checks. So that whole system, and I have a checkbook. I have a little checkbook for
Sure.
personal, and I got the big checkbook for the
Well,
business.
when you pay the IRS, you'd rather mail it than give them the money right away.
Yeah, I do. Yes, exactly. So they don't use checks, and then they don't carry wallets. At least Matt and Allie, our gracious hosts and family there, they don't carry wallets. So and this is how it works. They have their license in a certain, like a wallet, I suppose, on their phones. So all their important documents, which we have here, I mean, we do.
Sure.
You could take a picture of your insurance and license and things. I suppose
Yeah.
that would work here, but that's just standard protocol over there now. So no checks, so that they're not carrying cash around there.
Sure.
Just the phone. And, another thing is people make living wages at restaurants. So it was really awkward for me not to tip. I still did a few of the times because anyway, I'm so used to it. But anyway, different ways people are transacting, which kind of ties into this penny thing here we're talking about today.
Yeah. I mean, that
Makes me think we'll probably not bring it back. And maybe we'll get rid of more of the coins eventually.
It's highly likely.
Yeah.
Well, they'll make collector versions. They did say that, so they'll continue to do that for those that like to collect coins.
All right.
Well, speaking of collecting coins,
yes,
I pulled up here some of the most expensive pennies that are still around. So this is from Yahoo Finance. So take the source for what it's worth here, but it seems legit. They have a top 10 list. I'll quickly run through the top 5. So number 5 is a 1909 VDB matte-proof Lincoln penny. And so VDB stands for the initials of the designer of the penny.
Okay.
And so that one is worth approximately, I guess it sold at auction for $258,000.
Better check your pennies there.
Yeah. Then number 4, a 1943 S, and the S would stand for San Francisco, which is the mint where it was produced. A 1943 S Lincoln cent struck on bronze. So during World War II, they were making things, I think, in steel pennies as opposed to bronze or copper or whatever, and for the war effort. And so there were a few bronze that were apparently mistakenly left behind. They're extremely rare. And in 2016, one of them sold for $282,000.
Wow.
Then there's a 1793 strawberry leaf cent that sold at auction for $862,000.
Oh, man.
Number 2 is a 1944 S steel wheat penny. So wheat would be the picture, the image that's on the coin. Yep. Just 2 copies of that remain, and ones that are in circulation, if it was circulated, it's worth about $400,000 and could be up to $1.1 million for uncirculated. And then number 1 is a 1943 D, which I think stands for Denver Mint. Lincoln bronze wheat penny, $2.3 million. It's been valued at that, but it already sold for $1.7 million in 2010.
Wow.
So, so worth a few pennies.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we might want to encourage some of our listeners, most of our listeners that are clients, have solid financial plans in place, but if there is a shortfall in there, or would just like a little windfall, maybe we all should go before we take those pennies up and try to cash them in there at the bank. Should take a half day and go through them all, huh, Steve, based on this information?
Yeah. Well, and up until, what was it, like 1964 or so, that our coins were made out of silver. So like the Kennedy $50, I think some of those were silver. And and the silver dimes. Yeah. So a lot of the actual coins were made of silver up until some point in the 1960s. And of course, we had silver. It's you hate to say what it is today, because when this publishes, it could be very different. But
been volatile lately.
It went over $100 an ounce. So,
well, it's only a few days, so hopefully it's not that volatile. But who knows?
Hopefully it's not.
Well, it dropped a lot.
It dropped 28% in one day here recently. So it can move. But it was recently well over $100. So pretty crazy. So. All right, guys. Well, enough about coins and coin collecting. Let's go through some questions here from some of the listeners. This first one here is from Dan, and he was referencing an article that was in the New York Times, and it talked about a situation where someone had some of their securities taken out of their account. So, Matt, why don't you share some of the details here and what we can do to help prevent that? This is a rare situation. Let's just be clear.
It is, yes. It can happen. So we'll start there. The regulators have kind of issued warnings, but this is not something that is rampant. There's much more significant fraud, and really, this isn't something that can just randomly happen either. A lot of things have to kind of fall in line. But this was, so I found the article because this client kind of sent this over, and really, they were just kind of commenting that, they have proper cybersecurity on all their accounts and everything, but they just thought it would be an interesting topic for our podcast. So, we thank Dan for shooting this our way.
Thank you, Dan.
And here's the article. So it was a New York Times article, and it was really however the column is structured, but a question and then an answer. So here's the question. I discovered that 9 securities valued at about $120,000 had been transferred out of my wife's Roth IRA at Vanguard about 4 days earlier without our authorization. These transfers were made to an account managed by Merrill. The firms investigated and our securities were returned, but we still don't entirely understand how this happened and whether Merrill took the proper precautions.
Okay, I'm glad you were clear that this was not a King account.
That's right.
Merrill account. This is between Merrill and Vanguard.
Yeah. Well, and so, as I was kind of thinking through this, it's like, okay, well, what has to happen? I read the article, and then they talk about this too. So, there's a process, there's systems in place when funds and securities transfer between investment firms. And, our internal, our industry terminology is, ACAT, ACAT. And it's like, automated, I don't know, but it's basically, it's an account transfer process, but it can sound alarming. Obviously that would scare a lot of people thinking, well, because they didn't transfer cash. It's not like someone just got your bank account and took cash out of it. They transferred securities positions. So it's like, well, interesting. And so for that to happen, if we walk through all the different steps, well, the very first thing is your identity had to have been compromised.
For sure.
So, let's just kind of, so you start there and you say, okay, if I feel, as secure as someone could feel that they've done everything to protect their identity, then you've protected yourself from this type of thing. Because that's kind of where a lot of this stuff starts too. People are impersonating someone else to make fraudulent, transactions on their behalf. So their identity was compromised and an account was opened at Merrill or whatever the investment firm would be in their name. And it's because part of this whole ACATS system is they have to match the account registrations, everything has to match up or else it won't work. And to open an investment account, I mean, that's gotten a lot more difficult to do. You need birth dates, social security number, addresses, because they have rules, know your customer rules, and they have to do identity verification type things. And a lot of times they're going to use what's available on the credit report. So, when you get those random kind of questions that ask you if you ever lived on this address, and they give you 5 addresses, or, in this county, or how tall you are on your driver's license, things like that. That's all from your credit report. And actually one of the things that you can do, and this is what a lot of the cybersecurity protocols tell you to do, is freeze your credit if you're not anticipating using it, because that's another hurdle. There's other ways they can verify, but that makes it much more, much more difficult than just the automated kind of verification system. So, but they had stolen their identity. They had enough information to open an account, and then they had to have an account statement, because you have to have the information from the account to make a transfer. Because if it's not just like, hey, I have an account there, just here's my social security number, go figure out what the number is and pull it over. They're not going to do that. They need to know a lot more specific details about the account and everything else. So, they probably had access to their email. They had access to some sort of login to get that information to then, institute this transfer. So that's where a lot of this starts. And then, the fortunate thing about this, the good thing, is these can be reversed. Now, you have to find these fairly timely, whether you get alerts or you work with someone like us, because we monitor all those things. When we get anything that was not, communicated to us ahead of time, we're always verifying things with clients. Like, hey, we saw this happen. We just want to talk to you real quick. Can you just this wasn't, and it's extremely rare that a client isn't communicating to us what they're planning to do. But if we do get something like that, or an email even, we're going to verify before we act on an email, because we want to make sure something wasn't compromised.
Yep.
And so, these funds were given back to the client. Now, if you wait too long and then the fraudster then liquidates the funds and then takes the cash, that's kind of ultimately what their goal was, or to transfer those securities somewhere else. I would say why I say it's probably one of the rarest ones I've seen, is because there's so many things that have to line up for this to happen. Because I don't know, Steve, I think when we were talking about this, I don't know if you'd ever really had heard about this before.
No, but I mean, your point's totally right in terms of so many things have to happen before this could even become possible. Stealing your identity, and knowing that you have an account at Vanguard, and knowing what your securities are at Vanguard, and then getting the account opened up at the other broker, and then that not raising a flag with who is this person. So this is rare. And then, like you said, they got the money back. So,
well, to your point, Matt, when you talk about having a relationship, a deep personal relationship with your advisory team, I mean, you think about the importance of that. There's a lot of reasons that's important. Besides cybersecurity, there's a lot of reasons why you want your family taken care of if something, God forbid, happens to you, or any number of things that we live, the joys and pains of life with our clients, and those personal relationships are so priceless and valued. But this is yet another example of, you work with a firm that has, who knows? I mean, I think the way you said it was that they had money at Merrill that got moved to Vanguard. Is that
other way around?
Oh, really? So it was at Vanguard. So think about that. Now, most people engage with Vanguard. Some state, they have some sort of advice where you can get somebody on an 800 number maybe and get some advice there, but most people are just independently doing it on their own. So there was no one there to question that knows this person. Highly likely, right? Nobody had a personal relationship there. So it was on the client to notice it. Sounds like they noticed it after 4 days. But when you work with somebody that you have a relationship with, and we're fortunate at our firm that we have a very, very high client retention rate, high 90%. When clients come with us, most of the time we have a lot of clients that are actually multi-generational, 2 and 3 generations. So we're very grateful for that. We never take that for granted ever. Every single day we want to earn the right to have that relationship with our clients. But we have not very many people move accounts. But that being said, we're every single day we're coming in, logging on, the team is logging on. And if we see something that is that's going out, we're going to be all over it. That's just part of that protocol. I mean, you would think that would be common sense, right? But that's part of that personal relationship, and then verifying things more than you could imagine. So, I mean, when I look at this and hear you explain it, I think that was the shortfall here. I mean, there was a lot of shortfalls that led up to them having their identity stolen and all these things lining up, but that was a major shortfall. Was it
Yes.
there was no one monitoring this except the client. Thank goodness they caught it.
Exactly. I mean, it's all on them.
That's right.
To ensure that these things are whatever it was that doesn't happen. And we have processes and procedures in place. We have trainings in place. I mean, we're constantly talking within the team about cybersecurity and all the things that fraudsters are coming up with, and how to detect those things and be aware. And we're on point here. I mean, and it's actually assuring, knowing how well the team knows the clients, because if they ever get any indication that something doesn't feel right, they don't process it just automatically. I mean, they go to the extra step to make sure. It's like, I don't know, that didn't seem right, and they'll call back later or do something different. We had a situation. This was not related to anything fraudulent, but it was very odd. A client in in a small town, kind of southern Missouri, and they were calling them, and we were calling them. Yeah, we were calling them we were sending them a form, or wanted to check up on a piece of follow up on an item from a review, and it was answered. The phone was answered, but it wasn't the client. It basically kind of sounded like almost like a computer, but it was weird. They just thought, this is really weird. And it was a person that I think they were saying they've fallen, they couldn't get up,
Yep.
It's just really odd. And so of course they alert our compliance team, and, we're trying to just, okay, could you verify who they were? So they called back, and it was basically the same exact thing again.
Someone had taken over their phone line.
Yeah. So what they did was they actually did a wellness check. They sent the police over. They called the police and did a wellness check. Client was completely fine.
Yeah. Our team, Steve.
Yeah.
The Keenwell team, within not even that day, they said,
it was
they called
like,
the cops.
hey, something's weird,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the phone, like the local phone company, had been hacked. So I don't think they were the only one. It was just, anyway, it was like, and the client was appreciative that we went to those steps, but it was just interesting that this person, whoever it was, wasn't really trying to steal anything. They just thought it was funny, I guess. I don't know.
As far as we know, right? As far as we know, we had, we have associated persons. Someone could put an associated persons on an account, which gives us the ability to call. Maybe not necessarily discuss their financial things, but if we sense something happening, somebody's maybe
can't get a hold of somebody,
can't get a hold of them, or we see something that we need to talk about, because we also are in that unique position of being able to see when people maybe start to have mental acuity, go backwards a little bit, and we have that responsibility to notice that and try to be of assistance. So we were able to call associated persons on the account, and also the local police department within that day. And like Matt, we were saying, have a welfare check done that day. They, like Matt said, they weren't angry. They were very grateful that we care enough to do that. But this is an example of the lengths that we're going to go, at least at our firm, to make sure people are okay.
Yeah,
that we're taking care of. And we have a very consistent cadence too that we're checking on folks. Of course, we meet regularly in person or on Zoom or both, but we're also checking in regularly as well. I mean, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of proactive check-ins, but this is where we can hopefully get out in front of these types of things. So I think it's a great story to bring up. I mean, Josh Hill, one of our wonderful senior planners, brought us to us, a CFP, CPA. He was chatting with Dan about it. So thanks, Josh, too, to you for bringing this to our attention. Good stuff to chat about. Not exciting. It's, we don't want to scare anybody, but we wanted to talk about it.
That's right.
Excellent. All right. Well, we've got a second question here from Jim, and he is saying that I use qualified charity deductions, QCDs. I write checks from that to reduce my taxable federal income. Some of these checks go to qualified state charities that offer state income tax credits. And so Jim is asking, is this correct to use on my tax return, or am I possibly double dipping? So maybe just quickly, what is a QCD, And then also, what are qualified state charities? So let's get a couple definitions out of the way here first.
Yeah. So QCD is once you're over the age of 70 and a half. So you have to be beyond that age, and you have an IRA, a traditional IRA. So the IRS, the tax code, they allow you to send money directly from the IRA to a charity, and it is not taxable to you. So there's, this is the qualified charitable distribution. And then, so that's one benefit, because if you take the money, it's taxable income to you. And then if you turn around and then write a check to charity, it is a itemized deduction, and you may not itemize. So in the first scenario, you're getting the tax benefit without having to worry about deductions and things like that. The secondary benefit to it is once you're over age 73, so the age at which you have to begin taking required distributions, those qualified charitable distributions count towards whatever amount that you have to take out. So you get kind of a double benefit, or at least they don't make you take that out on top of whatever you're sending to a charity. So that's a positive.
And then ideally, what you contribute could be something that might have a lot of capital gains embedded in it, so that if you then give it away to the charity, you never pay tax on any of those capital gains. So there's some strategy in there in terms of what might you use for your QCD. Sure. Is that correct?
It's correct if with an account that's not an IRA. So that is a strategy of using a taxable account or a brokerage account that has capital gains, and then putting that inside a donor advised fund, or sending those securities directly to the charity. This has to deal IRAs directly with traditional IRAs. Yeah.
Okay. Difference here. Great.
Hell yeah. And Steve, I know it gets confusing. All these different accounts.
That's why they hire you guys, because stuff gets complicated.
It does. I know.
So what is a qualified state charity?
So, what that would be is so basically states, individual states here in the United States can have state income tax credits to certain charities. And those are designated by the state. So they're not necessarily the same across the board, or it's just, typically certain causes that the state deems is, important enough to where they want to incent people to donate to these charities.
Certainly a lot around education.
So by giving an income tax, at the state level credit. So in Missouri, I know there's different types of charities that have these, and what I've typically seen, and they do seem to be fairly common, because I think this is basically how at least the state of Missouri looks at them, is for a certain dollar amount. I'm sure there's a maximum, but I'm not positive what those amounts are, but you can get up to 70% of what you donated as a state income tax credit. Now, it's not refundable. So, if you did enough to where you didn't have any, tax liability and actually were eligible for a refund, you're not going to get a refund, but you can get a credit towards it. So, instead of getting so let's just say if you're donating $1,000 and your state income tax is 5%, that's how much you're really saving on a normal charitable donation. Well, you're getting 70% of the dollar amount in my example. So you're getting a much more, significant tax benefit by doing that.
So let's say your state tax was $10,000. That's what it calculated out to. You're going to owe $10,000 in state tax. You figure that out. You do some pre-work. You see that, which is why proactive planning is important, to see that. Yep. And then you go ahead and make a donation. You donate $10,000. You go ahead and make a donation of $10,000 to this one, like Matt mentioned, and some are different percentages.
Yeah.
But using 70 in this one, you would literally get $7,000 back.
Yeah.
Or you would only owe $3,000 to the state. So your $10,000 donation only cost you $3,000 in this example.
Yeah. And if you add the tax on it, if you're looking at it holistically, it's like, well, for $13,000, you're getting out of it instead of just paying the 10.
Right.
Yeah. But you're designating a large portion of your tax payments to where you want it to go instead of just going to the government.
Very,
at the
very.
state level.
If that's a charity that you're interested in supporting, it's pretty attractive.
Yeah. Those are definitely so. In Jim's question, which is it's a very reasonable question, because he's like, well, I'm sending money from my IRA to the charity, so I'm not getting taxed on that, and at the federal level, it doesn't show up as income, and at the state level, it doesn't show up as income because
That's right.
It flows through the same way. So he's thinking, well, am I still eligible then for the income tax credit? Because, he has other income that would trigger a federal and state tax bill, tax, liability. So can I use my QCD credit? Does that credit really count? Because, it's cash that comes out of the IRA. It's not like it's something else. It's just cash. And so the IRS actually has kind of clarified this. And basically what they've said is that if you receive any economic benefit, then the QCD can be disallowed, even, at the federal level. So, think about that economic benefit. Well, a state income tax credit would be a economic benefit. But if you were using your QCD to pay for you went to a charitable event, and part of that included, access a table and food and things like that. Well, there's some economic benefit there.
Right.
And really what you should do in those situations is separate out what's actually charitable and what's not, because you don't want to commingle those things and get your QCD disallowed.
That's great advice, Matt, because a lot of people go to these, and we do too. We attend a lot of these charitable galas that we actually support, and some of the donation that you make is you didn't get anything for it. It's like a fund a need they do at the end, or things where you just said, hey, I'll give 2,500 or 5,000 or 500 or whatever number. That you didn't get any economic benefit for that.
That's right.
But if you bought something like a Pat Mahomes signed football or a jersey or something else, now you need to ask them and say, what was the value of this? Mm-hmm. And then how much more did I pay over what the value of that item was? And really separate that out. It's a little bit of work. So whether it's QCDs or your donor advised fund, you really have to get detailed on that. So thanks for bringing that up. I mean, it played into Jim's question here as well.
Yeah. Well, then, so this is slightly different, because it's like, well, at the federal level, you're not really getting an economic benefit, but you are at the state level. And so the IRS has said, if the state tax credit is 15% or less of the donation. So basically, earlier when we were discussing this and we said, a 70% tax credit, well, that would be more than the 15%. So that wouldn't qualify in this scenario. But if it's less than 15%, then your QCD is fully valid. And, it at the state level, it's possible that you could still claim the credit. Again, it's going to be much less, because we're talking 15% of the donation, not more than that. Unfortunately, I was really trying to dig in at the state level, and they don't have this scenario anywhere in the legislature. So, you kind of think about, okay, well, how would they interpret it if someone was doing this? My take is they may say it's disallowed if push came to shove, because you're not paying tax on the distribution. Now, that's just my opinion. I would definitely tell someone to consult a CPA. I would say the most conservative choice is to not claim the credit if you're using a QCD.
That's right.
But again, the threshold is very low, so it's not like there's a huge dollar amount at stake here. And we know for a fact and they tell you up front, it's not like you don't know about this until after the fact. Those charities that do have these tax credits do tell you what exactly the percentage so they know exactly what it is. So, you would be aware. So really the strategy is, the way I would think about this is similar to what we were talking about with, going to a charity auction. Use different dollars for the different donations. So for a state-specific donation, you're trying to get the state tax credit, consider looking at, a non-QCD. So just donating after-tax money.
Yeah, with the highly appreciated stock there, that would work. There it works, Steve. So you actually get a double kind of credit there.
Because then you can there's no question you can use the credit there.
That's right.
So that's the way we would model it out if we were running different scenarios to kind of look at the overall tax picture to make sure that at least, from all bases were covered, and then, go from there on that standpoint.
Yeah. And it just really highlights the idea that you have to be really thoughtful about which bucket you're pulling money from to make certain donations or to pay certain things, because different types of containers have different tax advantages. And so you have to really think through that. And that's where people like you guys can really come in handy to help you make sure that you're following the rules, but you're also maximizing and optimizing what those rules allow you to do. So very, very some good smart moves there. So,
if we could have a question that was yes or no.
I know.
Yeah.
It requires talking through it. It just simply does. And then getting good counsel. All right, Steve, go ahead.
All right. Well, we've got one more question here that we're going to tackle today. And this comes from Brent. And Brent is spending time on social media. And he's saying that he has seen people posting about a $2,000 check that seniors might be getting. So what, if anything, is out there about potential checks that seniors might be getting?
Yeah, so I wasn't necessarily aware of that. So I just Googled a $2,000 refund or check to seniors, and that's how Brent kind of worded it. And found an article that basically said that the current president and the administration has publicly floated the idea of using revenue generated from the tariffs to fund a one-time payment of roughly $2,000 per person. And that would be most likely to people under a certain income threshold, like most things are. And they said the president had referred to these payments as dividends from the tariff.
Okay.
And, there's essentially no other details. So I'm thinking there was just some conference.
A late night truth social post.
Maybe.
Now, am I 57? Am I senior? Or
I don't think you would
phased out
be eligible for this. No.
I think I would qualify.
Maybe.
But he said, Steve,
I wouldn't.
Income,
certain income.
Right.
So maybe I'm excluded.
Well, how about this? No one has to worry about it. The bottom line, there are no checks. There's nothing been authorized. There's no pending checks that are about to go out because there's, no law, there's no program, nothing has been approved by Congress. So basically there's no checks until Congress decides to enact that. That's not something that, the president has the power to do. Now, maybe it could happen, but I highly doubt it that would happen at this point in time. Now, something, can change, but right now I'm not too worried about that. So essentially, if you are receiving any information or if you're getting random texts, which seem to be, more and more prevalent about these $2,000 checks, it's a scam. If someone's trying to get you to give them information about this, that is a scam. So that's really the warning here, is just don't fall for any scams. You might see an article on a reputable news, source, but definitely don't click links or give any information to get this fictitious $2,000 check.
Is there such a thing as a reputable news source, Matt? Anyway, that's for another topic. So.
Sure.
Hey, speaking of these checks going out, well, we'll save this for a future episode. But I've got 5 kids and 5 grandkids now, and so this did affect them. Again, we can save this if we'd like, but there are accounts that were coming out called the Trump accounts for people. I think babies born in 2025 and beyond.
Uh-huh.
And I've checked in with the kids who've had those babies, and they haven't heard anything yet about these. So,
well, you better tell them it's probably better for them to go check on those instead of them waiting to hear about them.
Yes, exactly. So we'll maybe bring that how those work up in a future episode here.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, I think we will wrap it there. And for each of you listening, if you want to learn more about Keen Wealth Advisors, please visit us at keenwealthadvisors.com. And of course, as always, please tell all your friends and colleagues about the podcast. And we would love for them to subscribe to it. And then also we have the YouTube channel. And we're having a lot of fun getting these videos out on YouTube as well. So please make sure that you check us out on YouTube. And Bill, you were mentioning in our last episode, why don't you tell them about your family in Australia watching us on the big TV screen?
Yes. So I got a note from Matt and Allie and family, Georgie and Owen, and then the family there, and they have a nice big screen TV, and they sent me a picture and said that of them all watching the show on YouTube. And of course, we gave them shout outs by name, which I did on purpose because they're important to me. They're very special to me and family. And so they were just super happy. It was the text came in to me at an odd hour, right? Because I shared that they're 16 hours ahead. Odd to us, not odd to them, but odd to me hour. And I saw it when I woke up that next morning and saw they were super happy and enjoyed tuning in. Now, I don't know if they continued watching past the point where we started talking about the U.S. laws, Matt, where you went into some really nice explanations of some of the regulations here, but they at least watched our opening, the first 10 or 15 minutes. And maybe they did. Maybe they certainly did. So that's pretty cool.
It is. So I think we can now say that we have an international podcast and YouTube channel.
Oh, well, we definitely do, Steve, because, we work with a lot of engineers too that are expats that go all over the world.
Yeah.
So when we see the downloads coming in, you'd be surprised at where they're coming in from all over the world. So heck yeah, we can definitely say that.
That's right. All right. Well, guys, as always, thank you. And thank each of you for watching and listening. And we will catch you on the next episode of Keen on Retirement.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
The Steve Sandusky Advisor Network and Belay Advisor are not affiliated with Keen Wealth Advisors. Opinions expressed by Steve are his own and not necessarily the opinions of Keen Wealth Advisors. Keen Wealth Advisors is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Keen Wealth Advisors and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. The contents of this podcast are intended for the residents of the United States of America. No advice may be rendered by Keen Wealth Advisors unless a client service agreement is in place. This program is intended for informational purposes only and should not be construed as advice on or a recommendation of any particular investment, strategy, or as tax or legal advice for your specific situation. Keen Wealth Advisors is not a tax or legal advisor. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your licensed professional prior to investing. Information in this program was compiled from sources believed to be reliable. Due to the constant state of data changing, we do not guarantee the timeliness or the accuracy of the information provided. Our views or opinions at the time you are listening to the podcast may be different than they were when the podcast was recorded. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any prices that are referenced or market forecasts are as of the date stated and are not necessarily our opinions moving forward. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. This podcast is not allowed to be copied, distributed, published, or reproduced without permission from Keen Wealth Advisors.